Should we start now? I'll start to say I'm the director of Ikon Gallery. My name is Watkins, and not only the director of the gallery, but also the one who had the privilege of hanging this exhibition with Boyd and Evans, Les and Fanula, who are here with me and you in conversation tonight. And to actually sit amongst your work as well feels like a privilege when that is the focus of our conversation. And just as a sort of an introduction, whereby we sort of slide into a conversation which will, I think, for the most part, to begin with, be between us, and then once sort of about halfway through, then to sort of open the conversation up. But I don't want to be too formulaic either. So, frankly, if there is anything that you can't hear, don't understand, violently disagree with, actually, maybe they sort of admire a statement too that has just been made. Perhaps you shouldn't hesitate to say so. The exhibition that we have here around us arises out of an exhibition that we made a few years ago, which was a survey of Ikon's program in the 1970s, and with Simon Chapman being with us, he's in the front row, the extreme left, was the director of Ikon then, in fact the first director of Ikon. It was such it was an exhibition that we enjoyed very, very much, and a very interesting point of view of art from that time. And in fact, it was in this very room that we had a painting, a large painting of Boyd, that was just here. And the reaction to it was so positive, and we grew to love it. And fairly soon afterwards, suggested that perhaps we start talking about the possibility of making a retrospective exhibition. So it's been about 2 years in the making of a very interesting process. And something that we've all said, I mean, members of staff at Ikon, something that I keenly feel, but I know Les and Fanula too, is that you sort of arrive at the point, you know, there's the opening, and then all of a sudden you're looking back at something that you've been looking forward to for so long, but you know, you've got the actual stuff around you, and your perception of it now compared to your expectations of it then are, you know, there is slightly at odds, and that's where I was going to start the conversation with you, to ask, you know, what it feels like, you know, seeing all of this work together, because it is the first retrospective of your work in this long career.
Well, it's been extraordinary actually, and some of this work we haven't seen for 40 years, and I'm really relieved to still like it, or be interested in it, you know, but it doesn't any longer seem like our past. It's good to be able to see it, and some of the work has never been together since we painted them. There are two little paintings around here that you could never get shown together, which were always meant to be shown together. And I think they're just there, the two there, that were also separated at birth, and now back here.
Yes, the larger one is in the Wolverhampton Museum, and then the smaller one over there is in a private collection. And, you know, to get them together again, it's almost like you know, siblings have been separated, or twins separated at birth, and then 40 years later they sort of find that they get on quite well together.
I think it's true. In a lot of the earlier work, we did things which where there were repeat images, and there was the big picture and the little picture. But it may look like this, but it could have been like this. You've got a little side issue, or you've got pictures which share quite a lot of similarities, like these pictures around here. And we were playing with the narrative that comes about through a succession of pictures. But when this exhibition was first suggested, we set about scanning every single slide we had, and we discovered that all our records were terrible, and all the records the galleries we've been involved with were terrible. And look, but we identified something like 650 paintings, and then most of it, quite a lot of which we didn't know where they were, and so then it became quite an issue. Establishing what we want in the exhibition, what we couldn't find, and then when we found it, we were too far away to borrow. And so it was. Richard mentioned Tyler Cameron, who started curating the exhibition until about the last month. But he did set up a way of us looking at just a bit of software that you can set up a picture of the whole gallery and move things around. And that gave us some idea of what kind of issues there were going to be. And he identified a number of pictures which aren't in the show, which we didn't want in the show to start with, but convinced us there was something in those which, in a way, we'd forgotten about. We didn't. In the end, we couldn't find the pictures, but we had photographs of them. So.
But you had this encounter, one with a gallery, it's a certain shape, and you know, some things fit, some things don't. You know, it's just a practical consideration that is always occurring to us. And then too, there's somebody else's point of view who is curating your exhibition.
And that is, it was good.
And that was a big deal, though, wasn't it?
It was a really big deal. There was one silly moment where Tyler, in this case, right at the beginning, saying he wanted one picture, and he said, "Oh, don't really like that one, it's not very good." And he was saying, "Well, I am the curator," and we were saying, there are two of us. But in fact, what we did learn was that our 10 favourite paintings for each decade, or whatever we've begun with as a talking point, don't make a good exhibition. That we needed these other eyes. We needed it to become something in its own right. It's not a history lesson. And that's been fascinating to watch, sort of being allowed through somebody else's eyes to see your own work, and to see what we always want from pictures is that people find their own stories or interpretation of them. There isn't the right one, and I love that, every minute of it.
Can we go back to that point that I made at the beginning, and you too, I mean, the fact that you were reacquainted with work that you hadn't seen for a long time, and you found that you liked it. And that's rather interesting to me. I mean, it's, you know, it's what you did, but of course, you would see it as an earlier stage in your development. Perhaps that, you know, subsequently you had not repudiated it is too strong, but, you know, there's some kind of superseding of something that you'd kind of dealt with and then gone on.
So for me, it's slightly around the other way.
Yeah.
Because this early work, we developed this technique, which it's quite an. I mean, I still like the technique to look at, but eventually we abandoned it for very good reasons. This spray thing, we took up spray painting because we were working together and didn't want different handwriting on the painting surface. But eventually, it was very much based on photographs. We eventually found that we were only able to make paintings from things which lend themselves to spray painting from the photograph. And so we were being forced, our images were being forced by the technique. And that, and the fact that, again, I've got to 3 small paintings on the wall there. Those 3 and one other took a year to make. It's so time intensive. We were getting way behind our ideas.
Yes, I mean, this series of paintings, you were going to make 50 of them or so?
There's been 100
of them. And how many did you make in the end?
There are about 7. In fact, these 2 here and the one at the end were part of that series. And we were going to make a book of 100 pictures, which is going to be a kind of fiction in paintings. And but we got
to still be making it now, I think.
Yeah, it was going to take us the rest of our children's lives.
Yes.
Jonathan, could we take a 2-minute trial without the microphone?
Is the microphone?
It's feedbacking.
No, it's
Can we try 2 minutes
it's
of that?
echoing.
It would be an artistic experiment.
Well, it's fine with me. I mean, it depends. We're sort of streaming on the internet with this, and is it okay with you if we don't have amplification, but just...
I'm not using that sound.
Are you not?
I'm not. I'm taking it from the camera.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Well, in that case, should we do that?
Yeah.
Because, you know, I feel I can project.
2 minutes and we can have that vote.
Okay, perfect.
But
So
shout,
thanks.
I've got a quiet voice, so please shout if you can't hear.
Okay, no, we'll see.
Okay, how's it turn?
They're turned off there, so that's good. I mean, there is a question of, there are 2 stories too. I mean, there's the kind of stories that exist, or 2 kinds of stories. There's the story that exists within the works themselves, but then there's the story of your artistic development that we are telling in the exhibition. And actually, it sort of occurred to me as well that very often the sort of spaces, the rather empty spaces within your work, so a bit like the empty spaces of an art gallery. So you become rather sort of wrapped up, you know, in this process of looking and seeing, which is a major theme in your work. And here you are, sort of making up this is a kind of mise en scène, a sort of scenario that we're creating in the exhibition. I mean, it would be interesting to just before talking about the development of your work and what we see around us, just, you know, again, thinking about how you set about. I mean, what this making this exhibition meant to you.
Ooh, no, go ahead.
No, I'd rather look at this. What I was going to say was, but this is related. Was that I was surprised to like the later work. You know, I wasn't sure whether this technique would shine out over the later paintings. In fact, I spoke to some Jess Bridgen, who said, "Why did you take up oil painting?" And I feared for myself that I would feel I'd gone off.
Mm-hmm.
But in fact, I've been encouraged by this show. I feel found consistencies of vision that I thought might not have been there. But I've been thinking about what might come up here, and we were talking about earlier, is that we always used to say that this work is fiction. It's that we find things in life and bring them together to make a new story, which is not the story that was in the first place. I think that our later work, we've moved on to documentary. There's a different thing, the feeling about later work, the photography and the American paintings. So that's a new view of our own perception about what our work's about. And I'm not sure I wouldn't like to bring some more narrative, more fiction.
Well, that's the other point that you both made too when the exhibition was opening, how it's kind of spurred you on.
Yeah,
you know,
I still
more
feel like
things.
it's given us this chance to review everything and find, but to relook at it is incredibly valuable. Otherwise, we're just telling ourselves the same old version of what we thought it was. And to look at it again, because of this setting, as you say, with a bit of space around it, so I'm going to do something.
Well, I was talking about, how's the sound? Is that okay, by the way?
Can we hear this?
Is that all right? You like this?
I'll have to turn this way.
But the other, I was talking about the sort of the relative emptiness of the galleries, the relative emptiness of your works at this stage. In fact, and then you go on and, there are images in the deserts seem to go on forever. And a point that you made as well was that, it was a rare chance for you to see your work with so much space.
No, it definitely is, and I think that's what I was trying to say earlier. It's that chance to reassess them and think of them separately. I think space is space is important to us. Who is it important to? But it's we do travel a lot in America, and we have in the last 15 years. And one of the things that I like being is in the big open spaces. It's as if there's room to think somehow. And always seeing something new is a chance to look at it. But this is like seeing our own work as something new, and in the way that the travel allows you to. So it's been terrific.
Now, one of the paintings around the corner here, it's evidence change, and you've got it's a window, and it's like the scene is disintegrating somehow, but it's not only a window, it's also, at first glance it's like a painting in a painting. And there's this fascination that is a thread throughout all of your work, this business of looking. Making an exhibition is all about people looking at what could be conceived of as sort of a window onto another world. And in your case, it very often is, and it's a rather sort of strange and tense and mysterious world, and something that I wanted to sort of to talk about. This is actually not a bad one behind us as an example. We're looking at people looking at something. There's the question of their sort of strange psychological triangle that they exist in. But there's also the way you can. This is nothing if not a very contrived image. The horizon, not the horizon line, but the centre going from edge to edge, this sort of tilt here. His head is, that coincides with the vanishing point, I think.
Well,
it was composed geometrically. With the interest, we were trying to make a picture which was about an emotional triangle based on triangles. And we were looking, initially we were trying to make a triangular painting, but we found that whenever you either cut the body off or you cut the heads off, they just kept going out of the frame. So eventually we came up with this idea, which was two triangles, two right-angle triangles, which became still on a rectangle, and there were all sorts of geometrical possibilities if you take verticals. And it is very, very contrived. We place the people and the mountain, so there's a, what do you call it? An aerial here.
Yeah.
They're all, so in a way to see what happened, and really I like the fact that it's tipped and it's stable at the same time.
We've always spent a lot of time working out what it is that makes a picture. Usually it's leaving things out. We collect images of things we like. It's what we see that sets us off. But I say that a lot of the pictures are empty, but what we've left in, if we can, is what we're interested in, not anything else. And then you're aware that we're constructing a picture. We were trying to make the parameters for these decisions smaller in the first place by only doing square paintings. I don't know where it stopped. We stopped being square. This is 2 squares, but it's about here.
Yes, it's happening in this room, isn't it?
So the majority of pictures in this room is square.
Yeah,
so
and then this one is the kind of really there's kind of turning point.
We're trying to cut out
typical
portrait or landscape, and I think this one is about exploring, looking at things too. A lot of them are, is it us looking at them or from the inside of the picture? So this is one of the series we did about photographic mistakes. What I probably need to remind you of is that photographs used to be something that people believed, and what we were using was the language that photographs use, to convince you of 3 dimensions, and that you might believe that it was a world, and so we're using that. But when you point a camera, you become aware not only that you could have taken it a second later, and that often leads to 2 pictures. It's almost a reminder to ourselves. But also, the Kodak used to produce a list of common photographic mistakes, and we went through. This was one of them. Don't take a picture where it looks as though the trees going over the tree. But I don't know what he's seeing, but it brings you back to the question what you're looking at.
Barbara.
Well, you talked about taking pictures and taking things out. Was there any temptation to take that tree out?
No,
absolutely not.
The whole point of it is that the guy's placed himself so that he can't see his point of view.
Well, originally when I saw it, I noticed the tree.
Oh, interesting.
I noticed the figure.
You would take that.
We should be doing an interview.
I noticed the figure first, because I have a fascination with the back of the heads and the mystery that adds to that composition. But then I noticed the tree afterwards, and it was interesting to observe when it attempted to take.
So there are other elements. Is it his point of view or is it our point of view? We placed ourselves so that we're putting him into this compromising position that he's placing himself so that he can't see his view. Or is it our fault because we've taken a bad picture because he's in front of the tree?
That's right. I mean, the things that are concealed as well, which of course has a sort of psychological implication too. I mean, in fact, the novel's here, and then there's the figure sort of walking down the path, this underpass. In Milton Keynes?
Yes.
We see them because of our point of view, but he can't see them because of his point of view. And that's a very strong, again, it's a very strong thread that's pulled through the fabric of your work. What do you? I mean, we don't see. We don't see them, and we can't. Not only a question of literally what we can't see because they get in the way, but also what's going on inside their heads. I mean, there is this very strong interest in narrative as well as formal composition in the work. And it has this surrealist twist. You love Magritte.
We do, yes.
Certainly where we came from, it was that wonderful idea of that's outsourcing. You put this with that and see what happens, and that's really where we began.
We thought we were surrealists, and then at some point we look back at our work and say, well, when did we stop being surrealists? And every so often we'd had another drive and made some very weird works at one point. And it's still a surreal. I think photography is quite often surreal anyway. I think it's still there, but it's not so clear as it was at this stage. We were really looking for the Greek kind of surrealism found in life.
I mean, when you talk about leaving things out, and then photography and how you're working now. The work upstairs in the last gallery, what you leave out is all the colour, often, except for what it is that you have this strong interest to convey.
Yeah, no, that's almost what I was trying to describe. We leave out the things we're not interested in. And in fact, I think I told you before that, and I guess other photographers like us have had that experience, is you take a picture and you think it's a wonderful image you've got, and you're really excited to see it, and you look at it, it seems to have disappeared. It doesn't look that remarkable, or there's nothing special. And we discovered through two routes, really, but one was an experiment, really. We had been painting, we'd been invited to take part in an exhibition called Paint on Print. We made some big black and white photographic prints and painted. It was an old burnt-out motel and petrol station. I think we painted some cars, mostly a couple of people in. So that was colour on black and white. And then we were looking at our photographs, almost an experiment. We just began using Photoshop, and there's something you can do. You can drain the colour out. So we preserved the bit we were interested in, and drain the colour out of the things that didn't interest us. It's like cutting them out in a painting. And there was a shiny blue water again, because we haven't altered the colours of any of those things. Or, bright red mountain, and you weren't aware of otherwise. Anyway, sorry.
No, and other works upstairs, there are two other things that I particularly wanted to discuss, and then we could sort of maybe open the conversation up. Aware of the fact that there are so many other things that we're not touching on, but it's a bit like organising this conversation. It's a bit like organising an exhibition.
What's
the rainforest paintings in the first room upstairs. I mean, that's interesting. I mean, of course, they're painted in a way that this work that we're looking at here isn't painted. I mean,
it's quite loose brush marks, and there are various motivations for doing lots of things, but the rainforest was a complete surprise. Someone just suggested, would you like to be artist in residence to a Royal Geographical Society expedition to Borneo? And it never occurred to us. But it meant that we then spent 4 years painting nothing but rainforest paintings. And at the time, we were just beginning to use oil paint, and we thought, okay, we'll use this to get ourselves familiar with how to use oil paint. Something which we hadn't done for years. We took our brushes and a big fishing umbrella to Borneo and sat underneath it, sketching from life. And it's interesting that by working from life, we found things that we couldn't find in photographs because it was so difficult to photograph in the dark. But the thing, I'm sorry.
No, carry on, but then I was going to make an observation that we haven't discussed before.
Okay, go ahead.
Are you sure?
Yes. Oh no, I was going to say that it's a big body of work.
Imagine what it was like hanging an exhibition.
I was just going to say that we wanted it represented, but I felt that if we had any more of them, it looks like what it was, which is a complete sidestep. Because it's about being there. One of the nice things is that we found people who visited the exhibitions that were going into the point where it's painted and out to the point where it's finished. And that was quite pleasing, but there's no narrative, and we felt that we'd lost the narrative with it. So.
Yes, I actually enjoy that. I enjoy what you could say is a confrontation in a way between the images of these wide open spaces in the southwest of the United States, and then you've got this very dense landscape of the rainforest on the other side. I mean, we hung the painting quite close together to sort of reiterate the idea of that intensity, and I'd say sort of curatorially kind of face-off between the images of rainforest and the desert. But the other thing too, of course, is that you went to a very different place, and you couldn't be further away than Milton Keynes, metaphorically, geographically speaking. When I say the place too long, it's happened in Milton Keynes a few years ago,
sort of can't see the wood for the trees. I don't, I take things for granted. I don't know if anybody else remembers going what was called a brawl in France, for the first time. Or something, milk bottles are different. You start noticing all sorts of things that you never noticed at home. The rainforest, we didn't have a clue how to look at it. We jumped to the charter going somewhere we didn't understand. And not that I can understand it now, but it was just hit you in the face. I'm really claustrophobic. I was terrified at night.
When we first went to America in the late 70s, we were so flabbergasted by the landscape. We didn't feel we could paint it. I remember being in the Grand Canyon for the first time, and I just could. It seemed to make a lot of sense to be an abstract artist. I couldn't. If you start imitating, trying to make a painting of it, you diminish it and yourself by doing it. But in fact, by going to the rainforest, which is in a way every bit as weird and wonderful as the Grand Canyon, that gave us. And when we came back from that, having done that sort of series of work, we had a new way of looking at America. It opened something up for us to actually tackle a wonderful landscape. Previously, we tried to keep things about domestic, simple, ordinary spaces and finding narratives in ordinary spaces.
Well, that sort of leads nicely to my theory. My theory is mine, which is, the extraordinary, the epiphanies that occur in, your everyday experience, the underpass that maybe you walked through every day on the way to somewhere, around the corner from where you live, or what's happening by the side of the motorway, the phone box, just over the brow of the hill, etc. But there is a kind of surrealist twist that I sort of mentioned. So it sort of shifts what is ordinary into the realm of the extraordinary. Then you get to the rainforest, which is, from your point of view, absolutely extraordinary. And then the sort of compulsion to have that surrealism in this place maybe sort of drops away. Is that a good theory?
I mean, it is. I don't know if we describe it that way.
I just thought I'd try it. I mean,
yours, Dan, you take that one.
I mean, it is, in a way, it's maybe it just feels so weird and strange to you that the need to add psychological drama.
It's strange to make work about things that you think are fabulous, which is what the rainforest was. It is everything you think it might be and more, and it astonishes you in every sense. It makes one weird and wonderful sounds, strange smells, and light comes and goes, and animals come and go.
It's a pretty surreal place, just gazing at the bush, it suddenly walks off.
But there's not much of that in the show, of course.
Yeah. But I think it's very much in praise of the rainforest, as we found it astonishing, and one wanted to communicate it somehow. And I don't think I feel that similar about the deserts. I think they're extraordinary. But still need to find a way to do it, where to put your frame around it.
In fact, this is a consistency we've found. We are inclined to make work about things that we like. We celebrate. There's not much where we're trying to tell you this situation will be changed, or not trying to hate anything. We are stimulated by things that we.
Yeah, I feel the same about the exhibitions that we put on.
But
some of your artists are more awkward, and that's what getting engaging yourself with that awkwardness is the thing that reveals the thing they have to tell you.
But I think I want in all of them being space for whoever's looking at them to think, and their little story is pretty important too. For instance, that underpass. Some people in Notting Hill's never go under them. People are terrified of underpasses.
Birmingham's full of.
And it's, or we did the big boulevards, they're quite empty. somebody said, just see what I've seen, how terrifying it is, these big open spaces. And I was thinking, I love these big open spaces. It's exactly the opposite. So it's a bit like that in the desert. I'm scared of. Not scared, not quite right, but you're very aware that you can't support your own life there. And that's, it's both, and I think that the bit of Western America that really intrigues me is where man and the wilderness bump into each other. It's sort of mine that bumping into it. Will I survive here? Am I scared? Am I frozen? How am I keeping it down? And it's, you think you're on your own. You haven't seen anybody all day, and you've been going hundreds of miles. And so there's a row of telegraph poles, so somebody's been there before. And extraordinary people did it in extraordinary ways.
Can I, well, my last question, because I think it would be terrific for others to join in, but I take this opportunity to refer to the small paintings in the stairwell. And it's a nice place to end this bit of the conversation, because in a way that was how we ended the hanging of the show as well. I mean, we did have very, very different ideas about how those paintings
had a moment.
might be. And then all of a sudden the stairwell occurred to us, and you walk down the stairs and you see these little paintings, and it would be interesting to talk about our arrival at that solution, because it is a particularly successful hang of those paintings, and how many people have actually said how much they like them. But also, we're sitting in front of a work that is 2 meters long, this corner to that corner, and you have, on the other hand, these small, beautiful paintings. And it would be, could you just tell us a little bit about those, and then,
gallery I've been involved with really since we started working, Angela Flower's gallery, has an annual exhibition of small paintings. You have a limit. It's 9 inches by 7 inches limited size, and often there's a theme, and we found these really quite a stimulating thing to do. Sometimes it's led to new ideas about work because we engage with the theme, and we've liked them as a group. And so when we were first of all thinking about having the show, it was a side issue. We didn't think it was not the most important thing we've done, but we thought we would like them to find a place in the show. And we'd imagined maybe a wall like that, little one there, and we'd plaster them like the RA, and just from top to bottom. And then when we were hanging, it seemed wrong.
Well, actually, was that John said.
No, this was lazy, because Jonathan's idea was to actually scatter them around like punctuation. And that was,
like little footnotes,
that seemed to be like a good idea, but it wasn't going to work. Once we got this, you don't want anything in between, and we didn't feel that there was enough on the wall.
But even the labels feel, when you've hung an exhibition and then it comes to that last bit, let's put the labels up. I mean, even that feels like, a transgression. But
this looked very embarrassing to us because we've asked all these people to lend their work, and it looked like, because there was quite a lot of them, we'd have to send them all back saying, "Oh, sorry, they didn't fit in."
Yeah.
I don't think they didn't fit in.
I'll make the phone call.
They're only 6 inches by 9 inches. They'll fit in. You've got loads of room in it.
I have to say, we half knew that he was right, but it was really hard to let go of him. And then this idea came up of putting them quite separately, which worked, I think.
Yeah. It's a lovely, we have used that stairwell before. I do think of it as a sort of vertical gallery, rather than the conventionally horizontal one. And it's a lovely walk through years of...
It's a separate little history.
Yes, it's another little exhibition, and it's another little survey. And that's another point that you've made. You could have made a whole other exhibition with a whole other selection of works.
There are a lot of paintings which we identified we'd like to have had in the show, and which we couldn't get in Saudi Arabia or in obscure bits of America.
Yeah.
In fact, the Tate. Sorry,
Like Antarctica.
Jersey, that was the movie, wasn't it?
So expensive transporting work to Jersey.
If you want a retrospective, don't sell your work to somebody who's in Jersey.
So I think at this point, should we
Yeah,
turn over the conversation over to you, because you'll have some interesting things.
Can I ask one more question and then I'll ask another one?
Well, wait and see if anybody else wants to carry on asking, because you know the others.
This is just purely techniques. You may not want to answer it, but I'm going to ask it. In terms of the large pieces of work, obviously you work together a lot and you know each other well. Who's doing what? Because I asked the question, what role do you play in decision and paint? Obviously it's hard to distinguish who's in terms of application.
Good, well I'm really glad you can't tell, but I'd like to begin answering that, let's get then negate it all. It's over 40 odd years, that's changed. You know, it's sometimes you both work on a picture. For instance, you know, there's always somebody needing to be cutting stencils while somebody else is spraying, so that's 2 minutes. But we began spraying, as I said, to hide 2 different handwritings. We began all this as an experiment, you know, just because we thought you could compile a picture. It was talked about, it was surrealism, it was something you could make. It wasn't how we felt on Tuesday afternoon. We were making an idea. So it didn't matter who did it, theoretically. But all that time ago, it bothered people that people should work together. They thought it was cheating. I mean, we won a couple of prizes in the early days, and one of them, we lie, as in just one of us went to collect the money, desperate for the money. They were rather right. And another one was to do with the French. You have a great belief in what is it called? Anyway, it's precedence, yeah. So luckily they found 2 brothers of the 18th century who worked together. So we were allowed to have our money again. So it was all about getting their money. But
do they let people in as RAs in place?
no, they still a
Is that right?
No, they don't.
They don't.
The RDIs do.
They do.
But your designers for industry discussed it and
Well, it's good for them, and that's a better tradition, isn't it, people working together. But so the answer really is, whoever wasn't bathing the baby, whether there was a job needs to be doing, but what we really don't want is you to be able to tell them about 2 different hands, because that means something's got in the way.
I'd just like to say something about this, and that is that as time's gone on, when we stopped spraying, we each adopted a new artist's handwriting. We chose we have to paint like this now, and every so often we reassess that. And so that's wrong, that way of painting, we're going to paint this way now. And that's always up for discussion. And every so often we have that discussion. But now we have 2 studios. We plan work, and we know what it's about because it's based on photography. We can say this picture's going to have this person, we're going to paint it this size, we plan what size it's going to be. And then one of us is working in one studio and the other one in the other. And every so often, for one reason or another, we may take over the picture. If it's
Or you swap or something, or you just have coffee together and discuss it. But there are disadvantages in working together, but one of the advantages is that, well, I don't know about everybody else who paints, but it takes you ages to see what's wrong with it. You know, you do it, you think you've done a really good bit, and that really good bit is the one he comes along and says, nah, that doesn't work, and it's right, you don't like it at the time for saying it, but it's, you know, it speeds up that whole process of deciding.
It's hard to distinguish which techniques or style.
Yeah.
The reason why I'm asking is I'm probably duplicating another artist's style.
Yeah.
And it's totally hard, it's totally difficult, and it's hard, and I just wanted to...
why?
But and that was immediately when I saw the work, I thought, wow, who's
the simple answer is that the authorship is joint. So if you can imagine that people, as Glennis says, people in the design industry in all sorts of places have been collaborating. They can, add things to the pot. there are several answers. I think either we each think they're our own paintings, or else we don't quite know who did it. You know, it's somehow arrived. And usually the ones that fall by the wayside are the ones where it doesn't quite take off on its own. But technique is just something you use.
Thanks.
Well, I have a vested interest in this project. I'm a collector, so as you well know, if I need this, 6 of your paintings. I've grown up with them 35 years, and my best friend has 2 more. I've grown up with them. It's very reassuring to come back here and realise we were right.
Excellent investment.
And this painting's here that are wonderful. I don't know whether you paint for you or for me, but again, I think you should be considering what will enhance your career, make my paintings more valuable. And I'll tell you what excites me about the work. I like to be invited into the narrative, into the story, by usually the power of the person in it. Like the portrait of the curiously dressed young girl there is actually very powerful, though we don't see her face. And the left-hand side of the narrative, 2 people talking, high time, 2 people talking. This one here, Master of Ceremonies, I get drawn in by the person into the story, and I think we should do more portrait-like work, drawing us into a warm story and less sort of magic mystery work. Like my best friend has the one at the end, and this one I don't really like, and that one, there's slightly too much magic mystery and not drawing me into it. That's all I'm going to say. That's very boring.
But I don't know how to do that.
Sorry?
I don't know how to do the next painting which satisfies that what you would like to see.
Sophie, big slides, that would please me.
There is another small one.
I don't like the small group.
We'll have to talk about it, see what Sophie says.
The answer to whether we pay for us or you is it's not simple. We wouldn't paint if there wasn't the hope of somebody seeing them, and it thrills us when somebody. It always thrills us when somebody wants a picture, but when somebody has their own relationship with it, that's what we'd always be after.
One was going to have surrender should be here. I know you showed it last time, but it's the most beautiful thing you've ever made.
Well, partly the reason why it's not here is because we had it last time.
Yes.
You know, but that was
That's a pretty poor reason.
Well, in a way, the big problem we had was just the galleries weren't big enough for all that we wanted to put in. If it hadn't been for Jonathan, we'd have stuffed them. And I mean, you think he's absolutely right, but it was something like that. I think.
But to your question, in a way, we've always seen that the point of being an artist is a kind of communication. I'm not doing it just for me because I want to do it. I want to do it because I want it to be out there. I want it to be hanging on walls for people to come and see it and to get something from it. I think that's where we stand with it. I want it to be seen and have feedback, such as yours.
Yeah. And lovely hearing what the pictures are about from somebody else.
One of the paintings I bought, I don't really know. Hannah.
Oh yes, Correspondent.
It's called Correspondent.
When I look around here, I realised that one didn't. The rest
I can't do anything about it.
Sorry.
I like it.
I like it.
It was certainly a contender here.
So if these are made as a form of communication,
Yeah.
seeing them back together now, do you feel that they're communicating back to you?
To us.
Yeah. Is there a conversation going on there? Sorry.
Well, it's like it does remind me of this conversation I want to go on having or thinking about,
And is it affecting the ideas you have for new work?
I don't know yet. We haven't started.
I think it is.
I think it will do.
Two answers there. We'll have to negotiate now.
No, well the answer is it's all at the moment it was a huge job to find everything and get it sorted and do it, and we didn't do much of our, real actual, didn't do much painting while this was happening. And right now we're dealing with the chaos we left for quite a few months, but very soon I'll answer that question in a moment. But of course it must be, our life has changed because of this. It's allowed us to a new look, which is great.
Yes.
When you're doing your work, do you think of them in a gallery setting or in somebody's home? How do you visualise your work hanging?
I think I imagine them in a gallery setting. And there are two reasons for this. One is that it's one of the things I don't want people to need to ask me what the painting's about. In a gallery setting, people are alone with the object and they have a relationship with it. They either not interested or sucked in by the images and then start playing with what the image means. And I think that's the ideal situation when the artwork is anonymous.
Yeah. But the next ideal bit is for you to take it to your home. But no, he's right, because I think we only spoil our pictures if people think that we've got an answer to what they're about. Because it's no more, whatever your version of it is going to be somehow hampered, I think. I think mine might be more knowledgeable about it, but it isn't.
I'm scanning. Simon must be very interesting for you to see Boiler Dempsey. This is Simon Chapman, the aforementioned Simon Chapman, who I've dragged into the conversation, but for you to see Boiler Dempsey now, after having included him in your program there. And it was, and they really did show it.
Yeah, it is.
How was it like from your point of view, seeing the work and such a survey now?
Oh, well, the survey is fantastic. Obviously, I think I'm right in saying that they just have never been seen together before. And so seeing this body of work and covering such a lengthy period is a very nice story. It's very good. It's also, the show for me is also particularly good because the work that I showed way back when is very different from the more recent, obviously the more recent work. And I love looking at what I think is the journey that you've both taken in getting there. Just as I was 30, 40 years ago, however many years ago it was, I still am asking myself the question of exactly what the relationship is in creating the work. And I wonder if, in fact, I've always assumed that there's a lot more to do with the process of our thinking about the work and creating the work rather than the physical application. I think I've always assumed that you are much more involved in the process of thinking similarly and debating and sorting that out as actually applying the paint.
Yes, that idea of technique being the sort of almost like a kind of vehicle.
Yeah. You don't want
You perceive that the technique was dictating our choices all the time, which is why
you pulled away.
And why we keep changing in a way, because it's once you start getting good at something,
But it's very, it's always been very, very interesting to me to understand what the relationship is, and it is an unusual one. There are lots of people who work together, lots of industrial designers who work together, but they're not. I don't believe they're that closely knitted. It's a bit like two songwriters, two musicians or songwriters working together. They are not as integrated as I believe you are. And I think that's quite unique. That's quite
we're exposed to lots of different forms of what art ought to be when we were students. And I always felt that the thing that art should be was performance art. It seemed that's where we should all be going. And then realised that I had no talent for performing or willingness to perform, so and to move somewhere else in life. And I think that there's I don't know how this relates, that in a way your life ought to be, your art, it ought to be the same. And I think we've kind of done that. It's the art's being the representation of our life, which is, so there's a little bit of that thinking still within the way we've ended up working.
There are other examples, of course, of artists who work together. And you just mentioned, yes, and you just mentioned performance art. One I knew big one, Gilbert George, and there are younger people who are doing it. But I wonder, and I think actually probably Gilbert and George are very, very close to the principles that you have used. Yeah.
I think for me, I've known you for many years, and I think it's a generosity towards each other and a willingness to accept somebody else's idea that's made your partnership so successful. I think Les was a new man, back in his 60s.
Even before they talked about it.
Yes, that's right. And you're both very open-minded and receptive to each other and listen, which is very rare, I think. I think that's I know, it sounds like a eulogy, it doesn't, it's not meant to be. I think it's because you are open to and listening to each other and don't have a sort of a very narrow view of what things should be. And I think in your approach, not only to each other, but I think to the world generally, you are very open-minded.
If you can come and be my publicist every year. We bounce off each other, I think, and it's...
And you're not stuck with one point of view.
No, it's true. I don't know about how...
Maybe I don't hear the quarrels that take place.
Well, of course, that's when in the early days when it was a problem for people, and it isn't anymore, it doesn't bother people, but there's one which just become a friend. There's a journalist who always used to come and see us, and she'd go away saying, "Oh, there's nothing more interesting you do. I've just been to see so-and-so, they throw knives at each other, and so-and-so, they don't have sex anymore, and so-and-so." And I thought, well, I wouldn't tell you anyway, if you're going to print it in the magazine, but it's much more about trying to get the idea right than my view over Leslie's, and I think that's probably what it's about. What we think is the idea, but we do talk about it, and I think we probably couldn't do it if we had meetings in an office on Monday night, because it might happen at breakfast or it might happen. So I think perhaps the fact that we live together makes it easier to talk about it. And I'm not sure that we always know whose idea it is. So it's not... It's more about supporting the idea if you get it really good. But we do. It's not usually about pictures. It's about money usually.
Do you find there are occasions when you're propping each other up?
Yeah, I think it's a seesaw of all business, isn't it? You're up and down. Would you say?
It's extraordinary because over the years I've known so many pairs of artists who live together, but they do separate work. And the ego, one gets ahead, and this is a terrifying thing to watch. And they just never survive.
Well, maybe that's the biggest bonus of this
experiment.
experiment.
Something totally unique, totally different.
We're moving to other areas. I think that part of the reason we're still together is that we each want the other one to succeed.
Yes,
because it's how we're built. I'm not having decided to do this. I want.
But it's grown, hasn't it?
Yes.
It's grown into.
Well, suddenly what happened is we began this experiment, and then 40 years vanished, and here we are trying to remember why it happened, and I don't.
Can I just say something else about the exhibition? It's quite a dangerous thing to have a retrospective
It's a survey. It's
Actually, our work.
But you pulled it off, and it's so strong, for whatever.
It's a very, very good body of work.
And I do think it's dangerous because over the years we've seen, retrospectives in the tail that have absolutely finished people.
Well, this won't be the last. Just the beginning of the retrospective.
Obviously, you've got really good friends who are saying nice things about us. Thank you.
But you didn't. I think the question has been asked: could you give an example of a painting in the show where you think you've looked at it again, you've rediscovered it, and that you know how when you're going along your career, you go up one path and you stop and you move up another path and then retrace your step and go, this is an opportunity to do that. Is there a particular picture that you think I'm going to jump off from that, even if it means going back?
I don't think this actually answers your question because I don't think there is anything that actually does that.
No.
But upstairs, the last 4 paintings, the most recent 4 paintings are of people, including Ty and
Yes.
I'm surprised that I like them. You'll know that there are certain reasons why we've been lacking confidence in the recent paintings, and I feel that in this context, I'm really glad we did them. They are interesting, and I'm encouraged by them, in fact. So that's the exhibition.
And they're very recent.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lot to look forward to. And there's a lot to enjoy now. And I think probably that's these observations are a good note on which to end, and a chance, because people aren't scampering off, and there's a chance, in fact, downstairs in our restaurant to have a drink or something to eat, and also the possibility of buying signed copies of all of them. So, to say thank you very much for being such an attentive and intelligent audience, and thanks above all to our extraordinary artists.